Hello, this is Atsushi and this is Sashiko live streaming on July 21st. Okay, let me check the audio first and then I'll start stitching. 日本語じゃなくてすいません。最初から間違えた。英語での刺し子配信をやろうと思っています。基本的には英語での語りになると思うんですが、何かコメントがあったら日本語でもお答えできればいいかなと思っています。大丈夫そうやね。ちょっと待ってね。1、2、3、4、5。Okay, let's start. Thank you so much for waiting. Okay, so I will talk about Sashiko while I do Sashiko stitching. I don't need the headphone anymore. I'll just keep stitching. I will try. Sakura, please don't play with that. I will try to jump on the difficult topic today a little bit later, but let's see how we can go. Let's see how much we can do. Let me just get on the stitching so I can start talking. I just don't want to talk. I want to stitch and talk. And I also want you to use this opportunity to stitch together. So instead of just looking at, like, there's nothing going on here. I'm going to just do Sashiko stitching. So if you could bring some of your project, it doesn't have to be Sashiko project. Any project is fine. If we could spend time together moving our hand, that'd be the ideal things to do. Sorry, my hands are so slippery after cleaning the kitchen. All right, there we go. So yes, as I wrote on the description, I think I wrote it on description, right? I think I wrote the description. Yep. It's gonna be a very long and challenging, tough challenge for me to even verbalize in the second language. But I have been writing a lot about the issue of cultural appropriation on the Instagram, and my message is pretty simple. I am not the activist. I am not any expert. I'm just a Sashiko stitcher born in Japan, understand Japanese. So I am not somebody, but I am probably qualified to talk about that because of my background. There are a lot of information that cut it off. Many people cut and paste what I say. Not many people. Some people cut and paste what I say and misunderstand, or they intentionally understand differently what I'm saying. So I made a video about what is the cultural appropriation in Sashiko on the YouTube. If you haven't watched that, that'd be great for you to watch that first. There was a comment on Instagram that I do consider any non-Japanese people teaching Sashiko as the cultural appropriation. I have never said that before. It does not have to be Japanese. Well, I understand and I respect the other people who has little more strong opinion about it. But for me, it is very natural for me to say that people who enjoy Sashiko or even teach Sashiko doesn't have to be the Japanese. Anybody can learn, anybody can stitch, anybody can enjoy, anybody can teach Sashiko. So I don't think it's the cultural appropriation. However, if they teach Sashiko as if it's the bigger whole story, then that's gonna be the problem. So I want them to keep learning. So as I do not represent all the Sashiko stitching. I have never said that I represent all the Japanese Sashiko stitching. I am sharing the stories based on the Sashiko I can stitch. So that's the only cultural appropriation issue I would define that. And that's pretty bad though. Because they are saying that, some people are saying that some of the so first of all, there's no rules in Sashiko. In the Sashiko I share, there's no rules or even right or wrong. That's pretty simple because the Sashiko existed everywhere in the Japanese community. So it is nonsense to define what is right and wrong. And for the Japanese people, it was natural for us to have it undecided for a long time. So we didn't have any definition. We didn't have the answer, the Sashiko for the Japanese people for more than a few hundred years. We were okay with that. We have been okay with that for that long time. Now, because of those, because of the internet, because we can say anything about any topics on the internet, we ask for the definition, rules, easy answers. As the result, unfortunately, Sashiko is becoming something different. That's very... So, for example, I always say that this is the kind of simplest summary. The Sashiko in English, translated in English, is not wrong at all. That's right. However, it's not enough. And I don't know when I can say that the Sashiko I teach is enough. That's why I never say that they got it everything. When I teach, I say at the end of the workshop, this is their beginning, not the ending. So although the Japanese Sashiko artisans like myself, who understand Japanese language, who was born in Japan, is saying that it is almost impossible to summarize Sashiko, the other people are saying this is this Sashiko without even the language abilities. So that's the first issue, first filtration that we experience. So please do not cut it. It's very frustrating, and it's sometimes very disrespectful to cut and paste what somebody said. If it's intentional, that's another story. But if it's not intentional, then that's also another story. I never say that non-Japanese people teaching Sashiko is cultural appropriation. And of course, those people who teach Sashiko, I want them to be good at Sashiko stitching as well as they have some Japanese Sashiko teachers, I hope. Not from book or internet. But we will keep talking about it. I receive a lot of harassment. Unlike the YouTube, on the Instagram, I have about 45,000. Wow, 45,000 followers. Thank you. So I receive a lot of nasty nasty DMs as well. But I can keep continuing it because 99% of the people there to read what I write instead of read what they think I should be writing. So it's I have to do it. I gotta do it. If I keep quiet, then Sashiko may become something completely different over time, and I don't want that happen. I mean, I cannot let it happen. If it's happening already, then I gotta do what I can do. Oh, sorry, there was a comment. How important is indigo dyeing in Sashiko? Um, how important? Not really. It doesn't have to be indigo. This is indigo. In order to talk about indigo, I mean Japan blue, we have to kind of separate the indigo dye from Sashiko. But indigo dye for the Japanese people were not something extraordinary. It was very ordinary things to do. Back in Japan, back in that time of Japan, indigo, like natural dye indigo, was probably the easiest and most affordable way to dye the fabric to the blue color. The indigo itself, by the way, I'm not an expert in indigo dye, so please do forgive me if I am sharing some wrong information. But indigo dye was a very affordable way to make the fabric stronger, more beautiful, and also bug repellent. To make it more beautiful way to preserve or appreciate the fabric. And since it was affordable, when the Japanese government opened their nations to the outsider in 1800, well, at the end of the Edo period, when they opened up their countries, many foreigners came inside of Japan, and what they saw was the old indigo color. So, like Last Samurai, if you remember that movie, if you have watched that movie, when the Tom Cruise comes to the Japan, as much as the other Japanese, like high class Japanese aristocratic people trying to be like Western people, the other ordinary people wearing something dark like gray or blue, because those mud dye, kakishibu dye, and also indigo dye was just common, very affordable and ordinary. Therefore, because it's ordinary, Sashiko people use that. People who also practice stitch Sashiko use the indigo dye fabric. And why white thread? Because white is the easiest way to get it thread as well. So, of course, probably, not of course, I'm sorry, probably there are more stories about it. Why the Japanese Sashiko is always indigo and white. And those stories differ from village to village, community to community. So I cannot speak on behalf of each village. However, as long as I know in my Sashiko and Sashiko I know, they do not really specify indigo dye fabric to stitch with or white. So many people believe that the Sashiko has to be indigo dye and white thread as the tradition, but not really. It was very affordable, very common, therefore we can find a lot there. But it doesn't have to be, it's not like a rule that you have to stitch on the indigo. Wow. It's not a rule. Well, my family preferred the indigo dye and they didn't like the denim stitching. But as long as I know, it was not a rule or restriction that we had to stitch on the indigo dye fabric on white thread. So it was not that important, I guess, to answer your question. Thank you for the comment, Seth. I've followed you a while and really appreciate the information you put out. I've been practicing my Sashiko and read your stuff, website every day in order to understand, appreciate, respectfully. Thank you so much. I will try to come to the YouTube a little more often, and I kind of decided to talk about it instead of writing. Um, as much as I feel that I have only shared 10% of the stories of Sashiko, um, I think it's about time to have a interactive story sharing instead of just writing story, because if I focus on the writing stories, I may end up with answering the questions of very, very, very basic ones, such as, such as what? Well, it's okay to have a basic question, like where can you get the thread? Well, it's on my website. But people can cut, of course, they can cut this live streaming, and then, they can do anything about any topics at this moment. So they can cut they can clip out some of the comments I say, and saying that she's doing something offensive to the other people. But at the same time, I think it is very important to share. God, I cannot thread it. What's going on? Oh, it's important to share all the information available. Like, if I leave all the information as is, even if somebody clipped that part of my message and then present it as if it's offensive or harmful, some people can watch the whole live streaming and they can understand. So those people who read what I write as wish they would. Let me rephrase that. There are many people, not a many, there are many, there are some people who really try to put me into the corner by saying that I am the extremist or activist, or because they read what they want to read, not instead of what I write. So there will be people who understand this live streaming as they want, but by leaving all the unedited version of speaking and information, somebody will probably receive something, and that's what I want. Not a want, that's what I can do. That's what I should do if my goal is to pass down this culture. Have you written any books about Sashiko? Is it possible for you to share that link where I can get it? Book publication? No. I am looking for the publisher. Several publishers contact me, but there are things that I would like to write over what they want me to write. So I do not have a book at this moment, but you don't even have to pay for the book. You can come to the Instagram, which is Sashiko Story, and you can read a lot of stories about Sashiko there too. Oh, by the way, I have a Patreon too, where you can probably read much more stories, but you can start from the Instagram, and if you like what I write, then I have about 130 stories on Patreon. I will share the link after this live streaming. But yeah, one day I would like to write a book, and if I cannot find a publisher, I am thinking about self-publishing. But at the same time, that's a lot of work, and I would like to stitch as well. So you're a textile designer, and I'm so interested in Sashiko. Well, if you could, I really recommend you to take my class either in person or online. I want everybody to learn. If they are into Sashiko, I don't want them to focus on stitching. I don't know if it makes sense. Sashiko is form of hand stitching. But as you can see, I am not focusing on any stitches. Like, I cannot understand. Like, I'm really sad that many people are discussing how stitches should be accurate, how each stitches should be the rice grain size, how should blah 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 blah. They, they really do not dislike the other people's stitching. They say like, "Wow, that's beautiful," and they compliment each other. That's the culture in the U.S. or in English. But they try to be good. They try to embrace the imperfection, and I really hate that word, by the way. Um, but Sashiko is not about making one perfect stitch. As long as one tried to make stitches, well, let me rephrase that. As long as one tried to control the stitches, then they cannot get to the core of Sashiko. So, I mean, you don't have to take the Sashiko class to get this core, but it's probably faster to take the class. So that might be a very good first step to do it. But at the same time, I mean, it costs money, and I do not want to. How can I say? I do not want to filter people by what they have and what they don't have. And there are a lot of people who just watch this live streaming and get the core. They watch the live streaming and my videos very, very intensively. So I don't know how long they have watched it, but it is doable without taking the class. So it's up to you. Like, if the time is your priority, then um, as fast as few hours, I may be able to give you the core. It's really. I'm not even angry. Many people, not many. Some people say that I'm angry. I am really not angry. I'm honest. Yes, I don't really cover. I don't do sweet talk anymore. I used to, but I really don't like sweet talk anymore. So I really don't. Sweet talk. How do we say that? Flutter? No, not flutter. I do not kiss somebody's butt anymore. No matter how famous, no matter how influential the person is, I say what I want to say. Well, therefore, I don't have a book probably. But I'm not really upset. Anger is not the word. It's really just sad. It's just sad that, oops. It's very much not even misunderstood. If it's misunderstood, that's okay. It's very filtered. Filtered is probably the best way to describe that. I use always the analogy with the pizza, but the American's pizza is only the New York style thin crust pizza. It is not wrong. I love that New York style pizza. But what about Chicago pizza? Is it part of the pizza? I think it is a part of pizza, but if you live outside of the US, you will never know that, because if the person who introduced the US American pizza to, let's say, Japan, if that person thinks that Chicago pizza is not pizza, they will not include it, right? As the result, if that language, if the Japanese language is the majority of the world language, Chicago, and then the English itself is the minority language, and then if the people are not eating pizza that much anymore, the culture of Chicago pizza might be gone. So that's sad. It's very sad. And I don't think Sashiko. I mean, I don't think the Chicago pizza is gonna be gone because it's very popular and it's in English. It's everywhere. But that's kind of the feeling I'm experiencing right now. Is Sashiko kind of a resist dyeing or resist printing? Okay, if that's the question, you may want to read the Instagram and watch my YouTube first. It's not even dyeing or printing, it's stitching. So there are a lot of like basic information on my Instagram and also website, and well, YouTube probably is the easiest. I have several stories what Sashiko is and stuff like that. So I'm not, saying that you are disrespectful or not. I'm just saying that not knowing is fine. Not knowing is perfectly fine. We can all learn. We are always here to learn. So, but I think it is a good. I do not want to talk about what Sashiko is from the super beginning. So probably it's better for you to watch some of my videos first. See, that's very interesting to see that some people think Sashiko is printing or resist dying, yet they know the word Sashiko. Do you kind of feel the risk there? It's a huge risk that word itself becomes so popular that nothing, I wouldn't say nothing, but um, the word itself became so popular that anybody can add any definition to that word. So in Japanese culture, it is not recommended to define one word without understanding the story's background. So it is very interesting to even read this the comments. There's nothing wrong. I'm sorry. I'm not picking. Go. I am not picking up your comments. I'm sorry about it. If you feel um, attacked, I am not offended. I'm not attacking at all. I'm sorry. Uh, but this is how I encounter a lot of hatred comment. If you misunderstood, if you read what I write instead of if you listen to what I'm saying, there might be the risk of misunderstanding. But it is kind of a traditional embroidery technique. Is also not wrong, but insufficient. Sashiko is a technique, but not technique by itself. But many people say that Sashiko is the traditional embroidery technique. That's already insufficient. It's not wrong. It's just not enough. So if I say that yes, Sashiko is the traditional embroidery technique, that word, that understanding started working by itself. And that's what the book want. That's what the publisher want, or even media want. You don't want to listen to the 30 minutes of live streaming to understand to understand what Sashiko is. You just need one phrase that what Sashiko is. That's what you get the book for, right? As the result, because it is outside of the English culture, it is inside of the Japanese culture, a lot of nuance is lost. And before it became a very popular trend, we didn't have to worry about it because that was only in Japan. Now, there are not that many Sashiko stitcher with a lot of experience who can speak English. Like I'm lucky to be able to speak English. So there are not that many people who even can pass it down. I'm not here to teach, I'm just here to share. And it's really interesting to see how it is translated and how many people react differently. So cultural appropriation happens when one minimize the voice from the origin. I think that's my partial understanding. And minimizing mean that well, ideally, I think the teacher. Well, probably people cut this part, but ideally, the teacher of those foreign culture. Let's say here, Sashiko is a Japanese culture for English native people. I hope they speak the language as well, like here Japanese, so that they can learn from the other Japanese people instead of learning from the second information translated or summarized by somebody. But I understand it's too much to ask at this moment. So only things I ask is for them to say that it is not enough. It is not enough. It's just the start. They should not define the answer while no Japanese are defining answer. So interesting and different. I want them to realize that difference. You may find it very interesting to read my Instagram because I say something very outside of your understanding, probably. For example, Sashiko is not art for me. I don't think this is art. At least I do not consider myself artist. And many people get upset. Like, well, not even upset. Like they kind of get frustrated with me, at me. That well, if you can do that much work, you should call yourself artist. It's so waste of your talent to consider yourself artist. Thank you. That's a very angry admiration compliment. They give me a lot of appraisal with a lot of anger. I enjoy that. But there are reasons that I don't consider myself artist, and there are many stories that I do not consider Sashiko as the art. And it is easy to define what art is in English, but I want them to have a little moment, not even like a moment to learn, but moment to be mindful. Why is he saying that Sashiko is not art? Like that tiny question mark in their brain. Like why? Why instead of like reacting to my word? like let's say that I said Sashiko is not the art. Some people just react without even thinking about it. No, Sashiko is the art. Okay, but don't you think you do not know whole picture of Sashiko because you do not know the Japanese as a language? So there might be a little bit of question like why is he saying that Sashiko is not the art? I might be I might be proposing something very unlike things in this US culture. I moved to the US in 2014. This is my 7th year. And I love this culture. I love this country and I do follow every single cultural things in the US. I try my best to do it. But when I stitch, when I teach, when I share Sashiko, I try to go back to the Japanese mindset as much as I can so that like it's a cultural exchange, not the filtering system that one can change a culture based on somebody's convenience. I just went through your Instagram page and now understand what Sashiko is. It's pure handwork and dedication. Yeah, that's it's Sorry to say from the top of your thing, but yes, you're getting closer. But it's not that simple to summarize in few words, and I really appreciate if you could keep reading the stories. But it's handwork. Well, then some people will say that, well, Atsushi, you might hate the Sashiko sewing machine. There's a sewing machine called Sashiko sewing machine. And many people get upset on behalf of me. It's really interesting as well. They said, oh, you must hate that Sashiko machine, sewing machine. Especially those like a, you know, festival? Festival. Contest. No, what do you call those event? Oh, my English is not coming up. What is exhibition? When I join those exhibition, people say, "Oh, Atsushi, you must hate those sewing machine making Sashiko patterns." I do not hate it. I mean, I do not plan to buy it because I can stitch, and I really do not, you know, plan to learn how to use it. But I don't hate it. It's just different. That's another long discussion of what is the, like, there's probably a big discussion between hand quilting and machine quilting. If people start saying that Sashiko is only machine stitch, then I have to stand up. But besides that, it's okay for me. Just a second, okay. Gotta think first. If I say I have to think, people might say that it's the process of making art. Yes, I understand. But still. Sorry. Huh? There's something kicks in? No. So yes, so I will probably keep doing this Sashiko live streaming. I used to not. I used to. Um, I used to avoid talking about this kind of topics, and I tried to make it more, not funny, but more interesting. And I will. I will hope. I hope that I can keep doing that. But I will probably do this kind of live streaming a little more. This is the problem with Sashiko thread. Just a second, okay. But I'm not so. I mean, I'm sad. As I told you, I am sad. But at the same time, I'm not that pessimistic. Opposite of optimistic. I'm not that pessimistic about the future. Now, many people told me. I mean, not many Japanese textile expert told me that it's too late for me to keep speaking up what Sashiko really is, because it has become already the trend. It is gonna be very. It will take. It will. They said it's impossible to reverse this trend, and I probably should not reverse the trend itself. But I understood their advice as it is too late to speak up to avoid any pain. But if I'm okay with getting the pain or like difficulties or without any easy like without determination, yeah, it's gonna be very difficult and painful. But I think I can leave something behind it because there are many people who try to learn, try to. I mean, they understand, as I understand that they're a lot more than what they know. They are a lot more than I know. So as long as we know that we don't know enough, then we can probably do something better about it. As much as the internet destroys, not destroy, I'm sorry, the internet filters the culture, I think internet can help us to help me to leave all the information, all the stories left behind. So whenever we need to refer to that, we can do it. And I will restart all the other live streaming, such as Sashiko's room with having a guest, and other videos as well. But after all of those video makings and arranging those events, I think just talking, sharing my ideas, sharing my stories, whilst sharing the unedited version of stitching is the best way to be this tone in this big trend. If I kind of start having the purpose or goal to like specific goal to direct my message, there will be a lot of friction, more friction than I cannot control. So I think what I gotta do is to leave as much personal but unbiased information as much as possible, and then we can decide what to choose. I think that's the start. Then after I really can summarize, then I can really share what I feel. Gotta keep stitching. But it's gonna be a very long. I don't think it's gonna conclude. I don't think I can reach to the conclusion. What is the cultural appropriation in Sashiko? I do have a video that I shared, very briefly summarized my idea as of today, but it's the conclusion of as of today. It's the summary of my idea, but it's not a conclusion. There's no answer for that neither. So let's see how we can keep doing. But there are some taboos. There are taboos. So those taboos has to be described as well. I even said it out loud, but I really don't like the word embracing the imperfect stitches. Yes, Sashiko stitches is imperfect because this is hand stitching. However, and you can really appreciate it. Of course, we can all appreciate and embrace the not perfect stitch like this. But if one starts using that as the excuse to not to get better, that's a very big disrespect to the people who try to get better over their lifetime, like my teachers. They never embrace their imperfect stitches. They always try to make the perfect stitches, yet because they're human, they couldn't make it perfect. After 60, 70 years of stitching experience, they could not reach to the imperfection. They couldn't reach to the perfect stitches, although they kept trying to be perfect. If they say that embrace the imperfection, that's I completely understand it. But if somebody else say that without knowing those stories, then that's very disrespectful. And that's why I say I don't like it. I mean, I don't like it. It's not even cultural appropriation. It's just disrespectful. It's minimizing the. So it is perfectly fine. Like, again, Sashiko is hand stitching, so it doesn't have to be perfect. I want you to enjoy your stitches. However, it shouldn't be taught like that. Does it make sense? You can do it. You can of course embrace the imperfect stitches. However, it cannot be taught like that. No teacher should say that. That's just horrible. But that might be the current trend of Sashiko. Enjoy the imperfection, like enjoy the moment, don't judge yourself. I don't want you to judge yourself, but wait, where am I gonna go? I don't want you to judge yourself, but I don't want you to disrespect the other people as well. Yeah, probably that's the that is the biggest dislike that I carry right now. I used to dislike the visible mending, or like, visible mending and invisible mending. I used to dislike that a lot. But that's not exactly the problem I experience now. I mean, those dislikeness changes, so it's my personal preference. So of course it changes. I may, change my mind about embracing the imperfection. I don't think so, but I might. There are a lot of things I probably dislike in today's trend, but that's one of the big thing. I'm sorry. Yeah, I really don't like the visible men. I don't like the visible mending calling borrow. That's probably the better way to describe it. Borrow is not the word for visible mending. It's not. It cannot be. Then, of course, your question is, then what it is? What's that? What is that? Well, the answer is on my Instagram as well as my website. It requires many stories, and I want you to read that. And I will try to explain that here as well, little by little. One hour of stitching. As I probably said it in the previous live streaming, I plan about 40 to 80 hours on stitching on this denim. So this is the left front. I'll probably do a lot more and then move more forward. So 12, 12 to 15 hours per leg. This is my fourth hour, so it's good to go. It's good to go. It's about not a good to go. It's about a good time. I'm gonna open some pop. It's not a beer. I mean, well, of course it's okay to drink beer, but if you can drink something that's like, I don't want this live streaming like, intense. I don't want it to be intense. One of the biggest goal I would like to do in the process of sharing Sashiko is to create the community, not a community, a place, a place. It is the Japanese word called ibasho. That Japanese word ibasho is not actually a place, but it's sort of the idea of belonging to somewhere. And it is my goal to have those space somewhere. It can be on the internet where we can, belong to. If you don't like me, that's fine. If you like what I say, then just, stitch together while listening. Of course, if you could comment, that's great too, but so if you're watching from the US, it's about nighttime. If you're on the East Coast, it's about nighttime, so it's a good time to start drinking, I guess. I don't drink, so I just drink the pop. If you are in the West Coast, probably dinner time. If you're in Japan or over the sea, then I don't think you should drink. It's Thursday morning, so probably you should not drink. If you're in Europe, probably you shouldn't drink neither because you may want to sleep soon. So the idea of place is quite important, and I do not want to bring any rules or restriction to that community. Like it's not my really hope to people start saying, well, that's not Sashiko, or that's you should make your stitches to the rice grain size stitches, or you should cross the corner like this, or blah blah blah. Like, it's not it's really annoying. So in that community, only things we focus is that we do not focus on the stitches. So Sashiko is not a stitch, it's more than stitching technique. It's the practice, it's the ordinary practice of Sashiko. I mean, the Japanese people who stitched. So I don't want them or you to focus on one stitch. Probably it's a good idea to bring some of the Instagram posts so we can discuss about it too. If you have any Instagram post that you want me to discuss, I can bring it. So if you are watching this as the archive, please leave the comment what kind of post you might be interested in. For me to discuss more, like deeping it, like digging too deeper. Instagram has some the maximum amount of writing, so I cannot write that much. So I sometimes have to summarize, shed some of the not important message, some of the nuance out. So I have about I have about 700 stories on Instagram, so I don't think I will run out some topics to talk about. Well, I hope I talked about the cultural appropriation as much as I can for today. The bigger summaries, please watch the easier version, like summarized version. You don't have to watch 60 minutes or even more than 60 minutes to get today's word. Sorry, to watch the 60 minutes to get the summarized summary. It's already there. But since there are many people who just cut my message out as if, and then they edit in their brain that they are reading something I'm not writing. So I hope I can keep kind of sharing my honest. Just a second. Come on, please don't. Okay. Just a second, Janet. Thank you so much for your comment. Just a second, I will come back there. The comment from Janet. I hope you don't mind. I share your Instagram post with a friend who has concern about cultural appropriation in fashion. They appreciated your writing very much. Oh, thank you. Don't worry about. I don't mind at all. I don't. That's too modest. You can say, "Hey, yo." I mean, if it's DM, that's a different story. um, you don't have to worry about the being polite on this live streaming. But it's really nice. It's really casual and I like it. But many people say, "Hey, what's up, man? Like, I love your work. Tell me what you're doing." Of course, I'm not gonna tell you what I'm doing. I don't know you. Why do I have to tell you or teach you what I'm doing if you do not introduce yourself with like, "Hey, what's up, man?" is not the way to talk to Japanese for the first time. I, thanks to, I mean, I became a friend with a very famous Shibori teacher. We probably, if you like Shibori, you should know her. But she appreciated the very, very polite or very formal way to greet her when I greet myself to her. And we talked how weird it is to have those interesting DM and greeting. I mean, if this is not Japanese culture related at all, that's perfectly fine. I love that kind of culture. Hey, what's up, yo, man? Kind of that kind of thing is, I like it. But since it is Japanese culture, hey, yo, what's up? That's a little bit too much. But it happens. Is it like that in the US culture? I mean, in the American culture as well? Or in English culture? Or is it they changed it a lot? I mean, over time. I know only, hmm, sorry, I studied in US between 2002 and 2006, as a college student. So my experience of the United States culture, American culture, is very secured, very limited. Those first 4 years, I was the international student who didn't even speak English well, and I was hanging out with many other international students. So, as the cultural perspective, I knew nothing. Now I try to be part of the community, small town, so I try to understand as much as I can. But my question is, actually, this is a question. In Japanese culture, when you ask something to somebody you don't know, like, and if you wanna get the answer or reply back, some courtesy, some like formalness is kind of required. Hello, my name is that. You don't even apologize. Like, you don't have to apologize that I'm sorry for taking your time. That's many Japanese do, but you don't have to do that. Um, Of course, if you're gonna pick a fight, then that's a different story on the first direct message. But hello, my name is that, blah blah blah. I'm contacting based on regarding this Sashiko, blah blah blah. That's kind of required in the Japanese culture. How about in English? It depends on how people were raised in terms of polite. Hmm. So it is also okay. That's a very good comment. Thank you so much. So it is also very inappropriate to kind of categorize the American culture into one that it should be like that. Okay, that's my bad. That's a very good point. So, so social difference or the background has to be considered. Then there's no answer. Ha, 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 ha. But in general, I shouldn't say in general because I don't like that word. When people talk about general Sashiko, I kind of but okay, it's really helpful. Thank you. I will not generalize that. It's a very good point. But yeah, like if it's open space, I really don't see the necessary of being extra. But it's very very appreciated. I enjoy it a lot. But my brain is kind of shifted to the English when I talk in English. So when somebody write, I hope you don't mind, if somebody started the comment with I hope you don't mind, I kind of expected that somebody would write something negative. My brain is also damaged. So that's how I end up with talking about this. Sorry, of being polite, each individual is different. Oh, individual. Not even the category. So it's not okay. It's not appropriate to categorize the people in the cultural differences in terms of politeness. Okay, that's a very good point. So there are people who are polite. Yeah, there are many people who are polite. So it's kind of confusing for me though. That's because I think the Japanese are very not diverse. It's bad. It's bad, but at the same time, it is the truth that we are not diverse at all. So expectation is kind of mutually understood without verbalizing it. That's the horrible and scary yet very important part to understand the Sashiko. There are a lot of expectation mutually understood within the people, yet it's not either written or verbalized. So there's like a like legal system which doesn't come with the legal system, yet mutually understood without even discussing it by peer pressure. That's a horrible thing, yet that's that's kind of core of Japanese culture. That's why it's so difficult to fight back how different Sashiko is now in English. It's impossible to understand that peer pressure without living in Japan talking Japanese. It's the kind of adverse impact. I don't know if that's the good word, but if one looks like non-Japanese, we treat them differently. As the result, the person cannot get that core probably. For that, I'm very privileged in terms of Sashiko to understand what Sashiko is because I was very much under that peer pressure, which I hated, but here I am. こんにちは、こんばんは、どうもです。めっちゃ今日英語で長く話してます。ありがとうございます。熱っ。It's really interesting too. I would never think this deeply if I decided, if I didn't, if I do not teach Sashiko in English. I did not know the difference this much. Okay, I'll show you the front while I drink. Color is always difficult. So this is red and white. This is a horrible lighting. Well, my room is dark and then I'm using one light, so I need something white to make. Well, this is red and white, this is yellow. It's always different than it's different than what the actual result is different than what I thought, what I think in my brain. So いってらっしゃい。回転寿司とか。いいな。日本帰りたいな。回転寿司いいな。これ入れてみようかな。So now, Shinobu is from Japan and she's gonna take her kids to the kaiten sushi, like rounding sushi, like with the train. Like I sincerely am jealous. I have not been back to Japan for a long time. But it is one of the things I do, and I did a lot. So I don't want to speak out of my brain. So I don't trust myself that much. So I really do not want to speak out of my brain as if I'm the only one who practice Sashiko. So I used to, and I still do a lot, to talk to the Japanese people who practice Sashiko today and see if what I'm saying is making sense or not. I mean, not everybody agree with what I say. Of course, we shouldn't. But they will tell me if I stood saying something very off the line. And that's really... So I made a place. The place I talked about, the idea of place to belong to. I think I made a good place in Japanese. I have about 30 people who I can trust and I can depend on. So I don't think I am being extremely strange or speaking out of my mind, personal stories. My personal stories are my personal stories, so there's no way to, judge. There's no way to be judged by the third people. But some lessons or some ideas of what Sashiko is from my stories can be off the topic. I really barely, like, there's no rules and there's no right and wrong in Sashiko is a bit of the extreme way to say it, because there are rules, there are right and wrong in each Sashiko. So there's no there. Like, I think the better way to say is that there are so many rules, so many rules and so many rules and so many right and wrong things to do in Sashiko. Therefore, there is no absolute one rules and right and wrong. But having those Japanese people who actually practice Sashiko today, checking what I say, judging what I say is very, 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 very privileged that I have. I mean, they don't speak English, so they don't come to the English live session as often, but in fact, that's really my asset. I don't have that much asset. Only things I can do is talk and stitch. I don't have that much capital. I don't have any employees, or I don't plan to have any employees neither, because my goal is not to make it bigger. I just want to make it as is. But having those Japanese friends are very much my treasure. Mm. ちょっと待ってね。そっか。いってらっしゃい。午後は多分俺起きてないですね。午後は起きてないだろうな。日本時間の午後は起きてないですね。どれだけこれ差し子続けても多分そこまでは起きてないと思うな。てかもう眠い。もうそろそろ。Alright, it has been 1 hour and 10 minutes. Wow, that's a long time. Thank you. I will probably finish when I stop stitching this thread. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, please let me know. I may be able to answer that. If you're watching this as the archive, please leave the comments if you have any questions about anything what I say so far. I hope that mic is on. Mic is probably on. I will try to keep challenging myself this topic. I'm very new to this very sincere issue, cultural appropriation. I just learned that idea or even word 2 years ago. That was not the easiest way to learn that, because it was very painful way to learn that. But before that, I didn't even know what it means. So I am learning every day, every time I write something, what is the cultural appropriation. And it's not only Japanese, it can be any culture. I might be doing something, so my idea is purely from my experience and my current understanding. I may change my opinion anytime soon if I learn something new. But I promise one thing for sure, that I will keep learning, and I will keep speaking up the truth. Thank you for spending your time this way, approved. Thank you so much. I will do it more often. Kind of, this is super honest feeling. I got kind of tired of writing. I love writing, but I got tired of protecting my message by rewriting it. Like, as long as just sharing, I enjoy it, and I will keep writing on stories on Instagram. But last few weeks, I received a lot of cut and paste. You can follow. Just read last 10 posts with a lot of comments there too. You probably get what I mean. If it's gonna be like this from now, I do not really enjoy it much. So I used to post one story a day. Now I try to kind of reduce that frequency. And if I'm gonna spend that much time, like I spent 1 hour, literally the exact same amount of time to write a whole story, then I can probably stitch and talk too. At least I can stitch if I do this. I cannot stitch while I talk and write. But I think this is more. Not a better. The writing is also very important, so I will keep doing it. But this is one way to do. One way to leave the voice. There we go. I'm not here to change anything. I'm not here to convince anyone. I don't want to do that because they don't change. I don't expect. If I expect to be to some, like if I expect somebody specific to be different, I will fail because they don't change. If they're ready to change, they would have been changed by now. I cannot make anybody to read what they don't want to read, or I cannot make somebody to listen what they don't want to listen. So what I can do is just leave it somewhere, so they may be ready at some point. If they don't get ready, that's perfectly fine, but at least there will be the resources somewhere that they can refer to. It may be in this 30 years before I go, or even after that, I don't know, but as long as there's the internet and servers, I think this moment of spending 1 hour with many people, thank you so much for sharing your ideas, this will be saved somewhere, and I think that's what may protect the culture. I don't understand what people get upset about. I find joy here in conversation. Thank you. See? See, that's one thing. Like I receive a lot of messages like yours. I really appreciate it. So I write one thing, right? Like writing itself is not gonna change by your iPhone or smartphone or even the Galaxy. The Galaxy and iPhone will display the exactly same story. That's truth, right? You don't read something different on different device. Although everybody reads the exactly same story, one say it's a joy, one say it's so upsetting. I don't understand what is going on. Like I thought that was my English issue, and that's how I got into the cultural appropriation issue. But it's not probably my English. It's so interesting and so amusing how people can translate their own language into something completely different. It's really interesting. You gotta probably, if you want to see what's going on, the Instagram is a very good place to look at. Like they write something I have never wrote as if I wrote it every single time. So the one big motivation I started this live streaming is that somebody wrote, because you consider non-Japanese teaching Sashiko as the cultural appropriation, what is your advice to blah blah blah? My answer is, when did I say that non-Japanese teaching Sashiko is the cultural appropriation? If that person is a new person, I'm perfectly fine. She is there all the time, yet she doesn't read it. I don't just get it. I try my best. I really did. Yet, nothing. That's super. This is yellow. I think this is yellow. But people say it's red. How can we keep having a discussion? I mean, this might look like white because of the lighting, but this is yellow for me in my eyes. Okay, this is sort of blue, indigo. If they say this is purple and red, I cannot continue the conversation because it's so different. But yeah, that's the world I live in now. So let's see what I can do. Right? I cannot complain. I cannot change anybody. I'm not here to change it. It's impossible to do that. So instead, I will leave everything I can. Well, probably the better way is to announce it a little before, like 1 hour prior to the live streaming is not the best way to start the live streaming. I should probably advertise it, not advertise it, I should announce it at least a few hours before that. But I'm a father of 6 years old, so I sometimes the last thing I would like to do is promise, schedule it, and then not do it. That's the horrible things I think to do. So, but it happens. I mean, I get tired sometimes. Today my daughter went to sleep early, so go. So today is it's an hour and a half. I probably did 1.5 hours in Japanese session, an hour before that. So it's about 4 and 5 hours of stitching. It is very time consuming. But that's what makes it more precious. So I will keep adding the stitches on these legs. And this similar design, it's freehand. So I really don't know what's gonna be next, but I will keep doing that. And being said, okay. Needle is back. Alright, thank you so much for watching the Sashiko live streaming on July 11th. Not 11th, July 21st. I talked about the cultural appropriation a little bit. Not as much as I didn't want to go too deeper. I want to kind of keep talking about it little by little. And I do not have that much extreme idea, or I don't want to be that extreme idea. But it is very important for me to keep speaking up with the information I have as of today. And I will keep doing that. And I hope you come back. I hope you can come back with the drinks and some stitching project. Okay. ありがとうございます。わあ、すいません。ありがとうございました。長く見ていただいてありがとうございます。水分補給ね。あんま飲めてないから飲みながら。暑いっても言ってましたしね。また日本語でも配信しようと思います。日本語はやっぱ昼の時間がいいかな。それでは、それではじゃねえや。それではで終わったら日本語で終わってしまう。Alright, so I will stop the live streaming today. Thank you so much for watching and see you sometimes later. Have a good night. Bye bye.